Hello, scholars. My name is Dr. Karis Dillon, and the goal of this channel is to make academic subjects easier to understand. In the last video, we talked about psychology and consciousness. In this video, we're going to discuss psychology in regards to sensation and perception. We, as human beings, rely on our sensory systems to provide us information about the world around us. This sensory information often tells us how we can find food, water, shelter, comfort, love, relationships, and avoid items that may have poison or be toxic to us. The nervous system inside the human body serves as a means of communication from one part of the body to another. We have billions of neurons inside our bodies, and many of these neurons are specialized, which means they have receptors that are set up for sensory sensations. When a stimuli, something in the outside environment, is detected, a message of this sensation is sent to the central nervous system. What's so neat about the human body is that we have senses beyond just taste, smell, touch, hearing, and sight. We have sensations that help our bodies to balance themselves, feel temperature, as well as feel pain. An absolute threshold means the minimum amount of stimulus that it takes to be detected by our body's sensory receptors. Scientists have also proven that our bodies do get messages that are below our conscious awareness. These messages are known as subliminal messages. When subliminal messages were tested in a laboratory, humans can receive them or respond to them even though they're not aware of them. Generally, these messages do not stay with a person outside the laboratory, though. While our sensory receptors are constantly gathering information from the outside environment, human beings tend to organize, experience, and interpret this information in their own peculiar and particular ways. This is known as human perception. Two ways that humans process information are known as top-down processing and bottom-up processing. Top-down processing starts very general and is often influenced by a person's background knowledge and experience. A person's motivations and their expectations can also influence how they'll take this new information into themselves. If an individual is very religious and they read a poem not knowing what the author originally intended, they're likely to interpret that poem given a religious context. Bottom-up processing is the taking in of new information that does not need prior knowledge. The information is interpreted as it is received. It is often called data-driven process. As an example, if a person stubs their toe on something, they tend to interpret the data quickly in order to deal with that pain. How are sensation and perception different? Sensation tends to be a physical process that the body encounters or endures, whereas perception tends to be more psychological. All sensations are not always interpreted psychologically, though. When stimuli are experienced through the body for long periods of time, humans tend to adapt to this information. Sensory adaptation allows the human brain to ignore certain noise or smells if they are experienced over time. Let's say you're married to somebody that has bad body odor. Over time, you'll probably adapt to that smell and may sometimes not even be able to smell it. This doesn't mean that others won't pick up on that smell, though. Attention can also impact sensation and perception. With the majority of human beings, we can be around quite a bit of noise at the same time, like being at a party. And if we decide to have a conversation with another person, our brain can adapt and shut down alternative noise in order to concentrate on that particular conversation. If you're interrupted during that conversation and asked what others were talking about within their conversations, or asked what music was playing, chances are you probably will not be able to answer those questions. This is known as inattentional blindness, which means a failure to notice something that is completely visible because the person is giving attention to something else. Now, this tends to be a little different with individuals with autism and sometimes with people that have ADHD. These individuals might be able to tell you what other people's conversations were about even by and listening to the original conversation. I notice that when I'm homeschooling my son with autism, who's now 15, if he hears the dog chewing on a bone or even his nails clicking on the floor while he's trying to learn, he'll yell at the dog to lie down. He cannot handle noise that's going on at the same time that he's trying to concentrate on the homework or the audio that's involved in his homework. He spends quite a bit of time in his room and on video games. I do believe that video games tend to decrease his anxiety and then allow him to interact with others with more noise. It's like the video game is a security blanket or a routine of sorts that brings him comfort. Motivation can also play a role in how perception relates to sensation. Let's say you're working hard to lose weight and you wake up in the morning feeling lighter. Whether or not the scale tells you the same story depends upon whether or not someone steps on it. I'm a person who definitely benefits when dieting to not step on a scale because if I feel lighter, it will automatically motivate me to continue with the success. Another example of how motivation can play a role in detecting stimuli and our perception of it is parenting. As a mother who's raised 3 children who were once babies, I would wake up thinking I heard my baby cry and then go to the room and find them asleep. Now, since my son was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, I've often thought his pump was going off when it wasn't. Motivation can change our detection of true sensory stimuli, whether it's a baby crying or a diabetic pump going off, and it can impact our ability to discriminate between background noise and true stimuli. When a person accurately identifies a stimuli in a distracting background, like a baby really crying in the middle of the night, this is called signal detection. Our perceptions are definitely influenced by our beliefs, values, expectations, motivations, and life experiences. Those individuals that live in Western culture are prone to optical illusions as compared to those that live in Eastern cultures. This is not because Western cultures are stupid. Take the example of the Muller-Lyer Illusion. Those in Western cultures often believe these lines are not the same size because they grow up in environments where squares and rectangles are the norm in architecture. Those individuals that have grown up in huts of circular architecture are often better at distinguishing the actual lengths of these lines. Much of the visual, what we see, and the auditory, what we hear, stimuli comes in the form of waves. There's 2 significant features of waves, including amplitude and wavelength. Amplitude means the height of the wave or the distance from the center line to the top of the crest or the bottom. Wavelength means the length of the wave from one peak to its next peak. Wavelength is often measured in frequency, meaning the number of waves that pass a given point in a certain period of time, and this is known as hertz or cycles per second. Longer waves tend to have lower frequencies and shorter waves tend to have higher frequencies. When it comes to sound waves, longer waves that have lower frequencies sound lower in pitch as compared to waves that have shorter and higher frequencies. Light waves are seen given the visual spectrum. There are certain visual wavelengths that human beings can see and others they can't. Gamma rays, X-rays, ultraviolet rays, infrared light, microwaves, and radio waves cannot be seen by human beings. Humans can see visual light given the spectrum, though. Other species like honeybees can see ultraviolet light. Sound waves are a little different. Sound waves often depend upon a person's perception of them. Human beings can hear sound frequencies generally from between 20 to 20,000 hertz. Mice can hear 1,000 to 90,000 hertz, and dogs can hear about 70 to 45,000 hertz. A sound's loudness is termed decibels, which essentially means sound intensity. A typical conversation with someone would be around 60 decibels. A person's ability to hear anything at all would be considered 0. A whisper could be considered 30 decibels. Music that is played softly could be considered around 40 decibels. Normal conversation, 60 as we described before. Heavy traffic would be about 85 decibels. A motorcycle comes in at about 95 decibels. A rock concert is about 120 decibels, and firearms come in at about 150 decibels. At 150 decibels, there can be immediate and permanent damage to hearing. A motorcycle and its noise will cause permanent damage at about 6 hours. Deafness is defined as the partial or complete inability to hear sound. Those that are born without hearing have congenital deafness. Another form of hearing loss is known as conductive hearing loss. This means there is a problem delivering sound to the cochlea, and often there's a failure for the eardrum and ossicles to vibrate properly. Causes for this form of hearing loss can be a hole in the tympanic membrane, blockage of the ear canal, or fluid in the space between the eardrum and the cochlea. Individuals with this form of hearing loss can use hearing aids that help the vibrations in the eardrum and with the ossicles. The most common form of hearing loss is known as sensory neural hearing loss. This can be caused by aging, infection, certain medications, diseases, head trauma, too loud of noise, toxins, or tumors. Meniere's disease results in sensory neural hearing loss, and there still isn't much known about it. Generally, the inner ear structures break down to the point where the person has tinnitus, vertigo, and an increase in pressure. Sometimes this form of hearing loss can be treated with a cochlear implant. This type of implant can be connected to the part of the brain that's responsible for this form of hearing. If you're looking for videos about the anatomy of the eye or the ear, please see the end of this video because I will make a link that shows those 2 other videos. The sensation of taste is known as gustation. Most individuals can taste 6 different types of taste that originate due to chemical senses. A person's sense of smell often assists with a person's sense of taste. The sense of smell is known as olfaction. The molecules that are part of food molecules enter the nose, and the olfactory receptor cells inside the nose help to smell the various chemicals within the food. Saliva assists the body with breaking down food and beverages that we consume. Taste buds, which lie on the tongue, have a lifespan of 10 days to 2 weeks. These sensory receptors send information to the brain about what is being consumed. Touch receptors are also part of a human being's nervous system. These touch receptors include Meissner's corpuscles, Pacinian corpuscles, Merkel's discs, and Ruffini corpuscles. Whereas Meissner's corpuscles sense different forms of pressure and low-frequency vibrations, Pacinian corpuscles pick up pressure and high-frequency vibrations. Ruffini corpuscles pick up stretch, and Merkel's discs pick up light pressure. The human body also has pain receptors. Pain receptors can cause physical as well as psychological issues. Being able to physically feel pain is important because it helps to make someone aware of a potential injury or further physical problems. Pain receptors help humans to know when there is a problem and that we need to take care of ourselves or particular parts of our body. Pain is typically considered neuropathic or inflammatory. Inflammatory pain usually signals that there has been some form of tissue damage. Some pain signals that get sent to the brain tend to be bigger and exaggerated. This is known as neuropathic pain. For those that experience pain, treatment can range from relaxation therapy to medications so those pain receptors aren't receiving continuous messages. For those people that are born with the inability to feel pain, this rare genetic disorder often leads to a much shorter life expectancy. For those that cannot feel pain, injury can become life-threatening. Not being able to feel pain means that a person can be internally bleeding and not feel anything from it. Bones can be broken without a person's knowledge, which can lead to much worse problems. Young children with this disorder will often bite their own tongues. It's important for these individuals to be watched over and examined on a regular basis. Well, that is the end of our video. I hope you enjoyed it. Keep working hard in all your classes, and I promise it will definitely pay off. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, and if you haven't already done so, thank you so much for listening.